Welcome back to the Jason Ranch Show. We are here on Seattle Red, 770 AM, streaming on our Seattle Red app, as well as the Jason Ranch YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber, you can go there at any point. Just search Jason Ranch on YouTube and not only get this show live, a video version live, but we post tons of clips throughout the day, shorts and long form, so you will never miss any of our content, including content you don't get on air. So head on over to YouTube, search Jason Ranch, just give it a subscribe, just click the button, and we'll get some content sent to you each and every day. We got some posturing from Secretary of State Steve Hobbs after the Department of Justice sent a letter on September 8th asking within 14 days the state to turn over a copy of its voter database that includes names, addresses, birth dates, and either driver's license or partial security numbers. And Hobbs sent out a statement to brag that he's not going to comply, quote, until DOJ provides me with information on what they plan to do with the data. Now, this is a very misleading statement that Hobbs is putting out because he knows precisely what the data is intended for. It's to make sure that we don't have people who are voting or who are registered to vote who are not legally allowed to register to vote, which is precisely why Hobbs doesn't want to give out this information. My presumption has been for a long time that Democrats who are in control get in the way of any kind of oversight because they're scared that the federal government in this case will find out that people who are in this country illegally or people who are dead are on the voter rolls. And every single time that happens, people like Steve Hobbs and others have to come out there and say, oh, but this is the anomaly. They kind of treat this like COVID cases after people got vaccinated. Oh, no, it's not the norm. It's the anomaly. It's a breakthrough. Illegal immigrant voter registration. That it's not the norm. So what do they think the government's going to do with this information? Is this Hobbs trying to pretend that this is about going after illegal immigrants? How could they go after illegal immigrants if they get access to this data, unless the illegal immigrant is a registered voter, which would be illegal? What does Hobbs think? Or at least is pretending to think the Trump administration is going to do with this info. He acts as if, and the media too, they act as if they have no idea why there might want to be some kind of oversight from the federal government with this administration that takes this seriously. What could they possibly want with this? I'm really scared they might sign you up for spam calls and stuff. Seriously, what else? What do they think is the underlying? There's one of two reasons to do this, right? Number one, to stop voter fraud. Number two, to arrest illegal immigrants. Well, if the system is as secure as Steve Hobbs and Democrats tell us, it can't be the illegal immigrant one, is it?
No.
It can't be because they say that illegal immigrants can't register to vote. So what's the issue with giving out the info?
They just have a reflexive knee-jerk reaction to stand athwart anything Trump wants.
It's the resistance, right? Yeah. I mean, that is the default. We are the resistance. We're not going to allow you to do anything. Now, the problem, of course, with Steve Hobbs is, you know who the letter was signed by, making the demands?
Who?
Harmeet Dillon.
Oh.
Do you mess with Harmeet Dillon?
No.
No, you don't mess with Harmeet Dillon. Oh, no. In fact, you are likely to make things worse by trying to mess with Harmeet Dillon.
Cue the Jaws music.
Yep. Oh, and she relishes the moment she's able to take people who don't act within our best interest and right the ship. So they're saying they're not going to do anything, which means the DOJ is going to move to get the database anyway. It's going to get in front of a judge, and let me write the movie script now. The judge will initially say the DOJ can't, and then an appeal court will say the DOJ absolutely can. And then ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court will say, of course they can. Cue Jen Psaki, who will scream about the fascistic nature of the Trump administration. This is what autocrats do. They ask in a letter politely for stuff. And then they go through the court system in order to get it if You legally are withholding information you can't. That's the telltale signs of authoritarians.
They're subverting all of our institutions, which is exactly why we need to pack the court.
Exactly. You know, someone needed to say it. Thank you, Jackson. It's so silly. Now, we're not the only state that got this letter, by the way, 26 other states, according to the Seattle Times. And the funny thing is, almost everything that they're asking for is already available to not just the DOJ, but everyone. The only thing that they don't have access to, we don't have access to, is either the last four of a social or a driver's license. But right this moment, this very moment, I can get every single voter name that's registered, their address, and their years of birth. All of this data is regularly requested by sometimes campaigns because they want to track who's voted, but media outlets. I've done this not at the state level, but at the county level. I've requested these databases. It's just the driver's license and social security numbers. Now, if the Secretary of State were acting in good faith, he could say, look, I've got concerns about giving out the social security numbers or driver's license. Can we chat? In the meantime, here's the database with everything else that otherwise would be publicly available. But he's not interested in a good faith discussion. He's interested in getting some plaudits for standing up to the regime that's making apparently just unbelievable requests that show they have ulterior motives. What those are, no one knows. No one knows what those actually are. But again, ultimately, the court's going to decide. Speaking of which, the Washington Supreme Court will decide whether online retailer Amazon might be held liable for suicide deaths linked to products that can be purchased on their platform. This, according to King 5. They say 28 families have filed lawsuits against the company, saying that they're responsible for the suicide deaths of their teenage or adult children who ended up purchasing and then ingesting sodium nitrate that was bought on the site. Now, an appeals court dismissed the case, but of course we have a very liberal Supreme Court in Washington, so they agreed to hear the arguments. Now, on its surface, it's one of those things where you, of course, sympathize with the family. But we all understand that sodium nitrate is not just used for the purposes of suicide, right? It's not just a suicide mix. And if you know that, how could you blame Amazon for offering access to this? There are medical uses. There are food industry uses. It would be the equivalent, I think, of suing them for having on their platform knives that you use to kill yourself with, or any sleeping pill that you overdose on.
Or like cleaning products or whatever.
Right. It's an odd one. Now, I understand a larger argument is around whether or not these products were marketed for the intent of committing suicide, which is kind of what the argument is, in that they say, according to the lawyer Phil Talmadge, who's representing some of the families, or maybe all of the families, they say that Amazon knew for years that it was being used in suicide attempts, but they didn't act until they voluntarily banned sales of this in 2022, and that the algorithm recommended sodium nitrate customers also purchase books about suicide methods, saying Amazon's algorithm put people in contact with how to commit suicide books. It put them in contact with antiemetics so that they would throw up the poison. And I don't know if it's fair to say that the algorithm was set up in that direct way versus the algorithm knows that if you purchase X, you might be interested in Y based on the habits of consumers, right? I don't think they went in and said, let's see, what else could someone who might be suicidal be interested in purchasing so we can kill off our customers? I doubt that was the reason for that. And the attorney representing Amazon said, according to King 5, they're asking and would require you to adopt a specific new novel rule that would make Amazon liable for the conscious decisions that its purchasers make after they've decided to purchase. And he said, yeah, the deaths are obviously tragic, but it's not on Amazon. Quote, what you're effectively asking for is a special relationship duty where you have to take special care for a particular subclass of purchasers to try and identify them and then change how your storefront is operating. And I think he's 100% correct. And of course, we do all feel sympathy for anyone who commits suicide. And we hope that people in their lives are able to spot this before they even go on Amazon looking for suicide products or products you can use for suicide. But going after Amazon in this way is, again, we know specifically how algorithms work, and they are looking just at the context of raw data that's coming in. Now, if you want to prove that they programmed algorithms specifically with suicide in mind, okay, let's all demonize Amazon for that, if that were to be the case. But it's not. And so if it turns out a bunch of people who buy knives because they want to stab people also buy a certain book, well, the algorithm doesn't judge the purchases. The algorithm just sees the purchases and the behaviors and then sends you content on that basis. So sympathetic story or stories for the families, but Amazon, sorry, they're not in the wrong here. 1-800-465-8770 for your text messages. I'd love to hear from you. We have a weekly video on our social media channels. Just search Jason Rants. It's brought to you by your local tax expert and advocate Greg Nunn of Nunn Better Tax Resolution. This week, taking you through the